your way. There are points in our lives we ask what's wrong, what is right. You make a decision and try to find yourself. You hope and pray that the choices you make will provide some relief, a small sense of peace. So every day I pray that I will find my way and reach out for love and see that I'm free. And every day we try, with faith I'll get by, I'll learn how to live. We've a lifetime to give. Am I giving my all, or am I letting things fall? I ask myself every day. We're always meeting new people and making new situations. I wonder which ones will last, which ones will sadly come to pass. And I see my face and the changes I've made, and I question my dreams. Is life all that it seems? So every day I pray that I will find my way and reach out for love and see that I'm free. And every day we try, with faith I'll get by, I'll learn how to live. We've a lifetime to give. Oh, it's a choice you've got to make. It isn't hard, you've got to take it. Taste it, reveal it, and feel your way. See, we get nervous about the things we want to do, so many things to see through. So I wake up every day, I tell the morning it's time to play, embrace passion. Today is a lovely day. Today is a lovely day.
With open hearts and open minds, let us seek the way of God. Please stand and sing with us the community song. God, origin and sustainer of the universe, in this hour and in this place, May our soul hear the voice and wisdom of the Spirit speaking and giving gesture in every moment through the words and the music and the presence of all gathered here in this chapel. Amen.
It has been an incredibly busy week. I want to say thank you to all of you who are involved in everything from the men's dinner to the bocce night to our hosting the farm church folks this past week. Special thanks to Terry Klausmeyer and Zach for the wonderful work that they did. And I'm kind of happy to say that there aren't any big, long announcements for the week ahead. Though if you are a guest in here for the first time and would like some information on our church, please leave your name in the green book on the back table. Would like to also say thank you to our two musicians, Daniela Sloan and David Hawkins. Thank you both for joining us this morning. So, recognizing that many of you are tired, having lost out on a little bit of sleep last night, I decided to break my sermon into two parts today so you can get two naps instead of one. And then we'll continue, sorry Kenny, with the rest of the service. It's early Friday afternoon, about 10 days ago. The place is the Gorton Community Center, where just short of 200 people have gathered to remember and give thanks for the life of Paula Bloom. There were songs by Christina Trulio and Terry Moran that touched hearts. The eulogies of three of Paula's colleagues and dear friends spoke volumes of her extraordinary life. And the 13-minute PowerPoint that Paula herself crafted for the service was nothing if not moving. By the end of the almost 75-minute service, many people, especially those who didn't know Paula as well as some others, were absolutely blown away by everything that she had accomplished in her 70 years on this earth. As I shared at the service, and I quote, Paula Bloom, the author of more than 15 books, the internationally respected and loved educator, Stanford PhD, founder of the McCormick Center at National Louis University, devoted wife, mother, grandmother, may have been the top performing human being that I've ever met in my life, end quote. One woman who had no idea of Paula's overwhelming life accomplishments, in comparing herself to Paula, deadpanned, I want a do-over. Others chimed in along similar lines. Compared to Paula, I just don't feel like I've done much in my life that really matters. Scene 2. It's 6 days ago, again, the Gorton Community Center, but this time downstairs in the aptly named Grotto. The occasion was the 2018 Community Church Men's Dinner, where about 60 gentlemen and a few others gathered for 2 hours of food and fellowship and fun. I greet a friend who I shall say is comfortably on the perimeter of our church family, which is to say an entire year will go by. You'll never see him at church, but he always shows up for the men's dinner. And so he's comfortably on the perimeter of our church family. His son is a good friend of mine. His son serves as the loved senior pastor of a high-profile church in one of America's wealthiest zip codes. We spoke for a moment about his son, and the father, himself a very successful ad exec who retired at age 50, said with both pride and lament, and I quote, "You know, I helped McDonald's sell a hell of a lot of Big Macs during my career. But you know, in the end, what did it really matter? It's like, so what? But the boy," referring to his son, "but the boy, He's changing lives. He's doing something that matters. A final scene. It's a spring and summer of 1978. What was probably the longest 6 months of my working life. Why? Because I was working as a sales rep for Hoyt Laboratories, which was a division of Colgate. And each morning, I'd get up out of bed, and I'd put a sport coat on and a tie, and I'd grab my bag of samples, and I'd get into my silver four-door Ford Granada, the company gave me, and I'd drive around dentist's office on the north side of Chicago in the northern suburbs to try and sell bubble gum, chocolate, and cherry-flavored prophylaxis paste, fluoride treatment, 2x2 gauze sponges, both filled and unfilled. You name it. If a dentist needed it, I was trying to sell it to him. It was the worst job of my life. I only lasted 6 months. The only thing worse was when I worked in a factory for about 6 months after high school. I couldn't stand it because the dentists weren't interested in taking the time to talk to me. Our prices were ridiculously high, and I couldn't stand the constant rejection. I wanted to say, I'm Tom, I'm a good guy. Give me a chance. But the greatest challenge is nothing about how I spent every day really mattered. Now, I was trading each day for money. And at night, with my buddies, we'd go out and play in sports leagues all over the suburbs. That was great. On weekends, we'd go out, we'd have some beers, we'd try and meet women. It wasn't a terrible life. I was having a bunch of fun. But at the end of the day, my soul was dry as a desert. And I kept asking, what's the point of all this? All I'm doing is taking up a place on this earth. So scene one, I want a do-over, says a woman in her 60s following Paula's service after she reflects on her own relative lack of accomplishment. Scene two, a highly successful retired executive considers his life work and he laments, none of it really meant a thing. Scene three, a young sales rep in his mid-20s, yours truly, is having plenty of fun, but his life is devoid of any meaning and as empty as a bird's nest in December. In each case, an introspective gaze is made into the mirror of life, and the result? Soul-rocking realizations and discomforting questions. Am I having any impact on the world? Does my life really matter? What's the point of all this? In just a moment, a few stories that'll help us think about developing lives that matter. Now, Kenneth, you come back up. Oh, there he is, I'm sorry. And if you'll turn in the bulletin, there is a classic old hymn that I think many of you know. It's called In the Garden. And as I think about this hymn, it's sort of a hymn where you can kind of rock back and forth and pretend like you have a great enough voice that you're in a barbershop quartet or something like that. And so if you'll please stand and give it your very best effort as we sing In the Garden.
Just want to say that I wrote this song with my granddaughter, Eloise. So far away, the dinosaurs are sleeping. Roots of trees reach into the earth. I hear the ancestors drumming and singing, calling from so far away. Long ago, before clocks began ticking, stars shed light on the creatures below. The moon's still glowing, the sun keeps on shining, calling from so far away. Shining from so far away. So many questions to wonder about. Who am I? Who are you? If I know one thing in this universe, my love for you is true. My love for you is true. So many places my thoughts have been landing, but I feel you here in the center of my heart. Here and now, beyond all understanding. We're not so far apart. We're not so far apart. So many questions to wonder about. Who am I? Who are you? If I know one thing in this universe, my love for you is true. My love for you is true. My love for you is true.
The scripture passage for this morning is from James. These are selections from James 6. Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like someone who looks at his face in the mirror and after looking at himself goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like. But whoever looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom and continues in it, not forgetting what they have heard, but doing it, they will be blessed in what they do. Those who consider themselves religious and yet do not keep a tight rein on their tongues deceive themselves, and their religion is worthless. Religion that God accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. The book of James.
So a moment ago I shared 3 stories, 3 distinct scenes that shared a common thread. In each, an individual lamented that their life had not mattered much. They didn't find the meaning they were looking for. They weren't making much of an impact. I shared the stories because I'm quite certain that virtually all of us want to have, seek to have lives that matter, that mean something. But also because in my conversations with you as we get together for a cup of coffee or talk about this or that, meaning in our lives is a consistent theme in our conversations. Also because people, like most of you, I think, come to church not so much as might have been the case 50 or 100 years ago, where you come to church so you can get your sins forgiven or so you can position yourself to get to heaven. People tend to come to this church and others like it more to look for nuggets of wisdom on how it is we're supposed to live this complex life. Finally, when it comes to meaning, this I know to be true. When people find themselves at the end of their lives, at death's door, there are very few people who are afraid of death itself. Instead, they're horrified at the notion that they've not made the most of their lives. And now they've come to a place that if their life hasn't made any kind of difference, it's too late to turn it around. So before it's too late, I suppose in the next couple of moments, one word on what keeps us from having meaning and impact in our lives, and then a couple of stories. So what gets in the way of us having impactful, meaningful lives? I say it's because we live in the Paula zone. I say that with respect, Daryl. We play the comparison game, like that lady I mentioned a few moments ago. God, I haven't done anything in my life like Paula has. Stanford PhD, 15 books, taught thousands of educators. It overwhelms me to think about it. I can't do anything like that. I want a do-over. It's hard not to compare ourselves to other people. We do it all the time in just about every way we think about our lives and in every arena. I only have half as many Facebook friends as she does. Whoa, he's my age and he's already retired? Or we were in college together. How come she's a mid-6-figure consultant and I'm barely making ends meet? Or how can he be 62 and look like that and have a 6-pack and I've got more of a 12-pack? No matter the arena in our lives, when we play the comparison game, we're bound to lose. Comparisons deflate, not inflate. Comparisons backfire, not inspire. Now, the couple of stories. I sent, if you read the newsletter this past week, I sent on Friday in the newsletter a note that shared that I'd made a decision during the course of the week to put the sermon that I had been working on back in the freezer to pull out for another time. And that I was working on a message about living a life that matters. How you and I find meaning in our lives. And it was my choice to do that because people finding meaning and lacking meaning has been a big-time theme in my life and in many of your lives, I know, in the past few weeks. But I have a confession, and that always gets your attention. My confession is this, that I very early this morning recognized that the sermon meal I had cooked up for this morning pretty much belonged on the compost pile out back of the house. And sometimes that just happens. So instead of what I had worked on, which just never came together, I'm going to tell a personal story or two and hope that provides a hint of food and inspiration. It's the mid-1970s, and I'm a college student at the University of Utah. And I graduated and thought all along since I was 15 or 16 that I wanted to be a minister. But when I got accepted to seminary, I kind of put the brakes on and said, well, I'm not sure I'm quite ready for this. So I blew it off the first year so I could spend more time skiing. And there I was. I worked for the University of Utah. I had my degree. I worked for the University of Utah in the esteemed position. I was the janitor in the women's gymnasium and worked basically from 5 until 8 every morning. And there was one morning when I was cleaning one of the locker rooms or the bathroom, and I had that experience of looking in the mirror, both literally and figuratively, and I don't have a hint of what kind of clothes I had on, but I know my hair was about this long. Certainly not washed at 5 o'clock in the morning, unshaven, had a lightning bolt pierced ear in my left ear. It was the middle 1970s too in the state of Utah. That was a little funky. And I can assure you there was no smile on my face. I had that same feeling as I had when I was selling dental supplies. It was just empty, no meaning. And so I went off the next year to seminary in San Francisco, and the world seemed to be filled with people who said, "Oh, God bless you. You're answering God's call to the ministry." And you know, when they said that, I never had any idea what they were talking about because I'd never received any divine messages. I didn't hear any voices. And I was desperately trying to figure out what that meant to be called to the ministry. So halfway through my first year, I was part of what was called a shadowing program, where I went out to Clayton, California to spend 3 weeks with Tom Fisher and his wife Clara Jo. He was the minister of a small church, and I witnessed him working like a dog. And part of the agenda for that time was for me to reflect and write a paper on this question of a call to the ministry and what that meant for me. Well, during the shadowing program, I walked, I prayed, I reflected, I followed Tom around, I searched my heart. I wanted meaning in my life. I needed meaning, but I just had no idea if that was the right thing. Well, Saturday night of the very last week came around, and for me it was going to be a night off, of which I hadn't really had any. And I was especially excited because there's a guy by the name of Wally Walker. Some of you may know that name. At the time, he was playing for the Seattle Supersonics basketball team. He was an acquaintance, and they were in town to play the Warriors. And so I had a ticket to the game. I contacted Wally. We were going to go out and have a beer and a burger afterwards. Really psyched for that. Well, just before it was time to leave, Tom contacted me. He came to my room and he said, "Tom, there's been an emergency. Mary Walker just received a phone call. Her husband, Joe, has been found unconscious in his hotel room in Sacramento, 2 hours away. I'm going to take Mary there now. Will you take the other car and follow us there? You don't have to if you want to go to the game, I understand." Well, of course I made the decision to help out. And so I got in one car with the 30-year-old daughter of the gentleman who was found, and we followed Tom and Mary, the woman of the gentleman, in their cars. And as soon as we got to the highway, they were going 70, 75 miles an hour. And these were the days when everybody drove 55. We had to. And the closer we got to Sacramento, the slower the cars went. And we got within a few miles of the hospital and were barely going 45. Scared to death, I think, as to what everyone would find. We got to the hospital. We found that Joe had had a massive cerebral hemorrhage. At 10 o'clock that night, they turned off his life support, and he died. I was given the assignment to take that second car and take Joe's 30th daughter back to the hotel room to collect his belongings. It's about 10:30 on a Saturday night, Sacramento, big hotel, and as soon as you open the doors, you hear the biggest party going on. There was a giant room about twice the size of this. There were people dancing, people drinking, a big party. There was a band going on. It was exactly the kind of thing that I might be at just a year prior. We were escorted by a security guard down the hallway to the room. And I'm having this moment of, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? I didn't know him. This is sort of my former life. What am I doing? The hotel security guard opened the room for the first time in my life. I understand what people talk about when they mention the smell of death. The room was a mess from the scrambling paramedics a few hours earlier trying to save his life. With his daughter, tears streaming down her eyes, and methodically collected his belongings. I take his wingtips out of the closet, put them in a black plastic bag, his shoes, his socks, everything, this man I'd never met. And then as we gathered everything, we closed the door behind us and we're walking back down that aisle towards the parking lot. This huge party off to the right, people laughing and drinking and dancing and having fun, the band playing. And I suddenly have this overwhelming feeling that stops me absolutely in my tracks. The music continued to play, but it was like I didn't hear a thing. Because I had this feeling of warmth come over me. And this notion that even though it made no sense whatsoever, there was nothing I would rather be doing in the whole world than helping out this woman and her family at that time. Did it make sense? Not really, based on how I'd lived my life. And as insane as it seems, that was my call to the ministry. This sense that that was absolutely what I was supposed to be doing. And that I was supposed to be a minister, and that's how I could find the meaning in my life. And so I think, for me, I found meaning at this intersection of real struggle and paying attention to my life and the world around me. And then ultimately it came to me. Another way of saying it, love Frederick Buechner. We hung this up at the beach a couple years ago. The place God calls you to is the place where your deep gladness and the world's hunger meets. A great question if you're in the place of seeking meaning in your life, if you're looking to have an impact, where's your deep gladness? What makes you come alive? And where might that meet with the needs of the world? Now, a final thought. Not everyone has the interest or the desire to make their vocation revolve around something that matters. I totally get that. I have absolutely no idea why I'm wired the way I am. I just am. I just need that. It's not good, it's not bad, it just is what it is. The point I want to make is that a life that matters need not be something that you do 24/7 like Zach and I do. A life that matters can be something as simple as being a great friend to other human beings. I do ministry based on the premise that everyone is in need. That if we had a single file of everyone here, and I asked you to honestly respond to the question, are you struggling with something in your life right now? Are you fighting a battle? Is there something that's troubling you? I'd bet anything that every single person would have an answer to that question. Doesn't matter if you're in middle school. Doesn't matter if you're a little bit past middle school. Everyone in between is fighting a battle. And developing friendships, taking a step forward to be a friend to someone else in need, is one of the most impactful, powerful things that you and I can do. And I learned that lesson loud and clear this past few weeks in getting to know Joan Cook a little bit and hearing others talk about her life and hearing her reflect on her life just a little bit. She's the mother of Graham, who's here today. I was blessed to have this amazing experience of a woman who befriended so many people and gave them life and energy through her friendship. Joan, just a few weeks back, was diagnosed after she thought she had pneumonia. She was diagnosed with lung cancer, stage 4. It had spread. And she was in the hospital, and the physicians basically said, it's time for hospice. This isn't a matter of years or months or weeks, it's a matter of days. I went to visit Joan in the hospital after she received that message. And she said, you know what? With a half smile on her face, it's okay. I've had an amazing life. And you know what? There's some people I want to see. In fact, I'm actually looking forward to it. Well, the next day, Joan went home. And the 3 days that followed were the most extraordinary living wake that anyone could ever have. Because all these people that she had befriended came to visit. Some of you were there. And it was like a parade, mostly of women, to her room nonstop, sharing stories, memories, and saying, I love you, which was one of Joan's favorite phrases. Friends flew in from around the United States to just spend a few moments with her. But it wasn't just friends from her social circle. Joan had the manager of a local inn and 2 of the servers that she had befriended and loved come to say hello and goodbye. In fact, I spoke with a bartender at a local tavern. Joan would have a meal there periodically. One time, Joan gave way too much money for the bill. The bartender said, you gave me too much money for a tip. And she said, no, that's not a tip. I heard that you were pregnant. That's for your baby. She tried to befriend every single person she met, no matter who they were or what they looked like. It became for me a clear demonstration that if you and I want to have an impact on other human beings in our lives, we can make a big crazy decision and go be a minister or a social worker or a therapist, or we can do the sorts of things that, you know, everybody says, oh, that's a helping profession. That means something, that matters. But you know what? That's not for everybody. If you want to have an impact, think about every single person you meet during the course of the day as a friend, recognizing that they have battles just like you and I have battles. Think about what a friendship or a smile or a hug might mean. Amen.
Oh, there was a woman in the Bible days. She had been sick so very long. She heard that Jesus was gonna be passing by, so she joined the gathering throng. And while she was pushing her way on through, somebody asked her, "What are you trying to do?" She said, "If I could just touch the hem of his garment, then I know that I'll be made whole right now." She cried, "Oh Lord, oh Lord, oh Lord." She said, "If I could just touch the hem of his garment, then I know that I'll be made whole again." She spent her money here and there until she had no more to spare. The doctors, they'd all done what they could, but their medicine would do no good. So when she touched him, the Savior didn't see. Still he turned around and cried, "Somebody touched me." She said, "It was I who touched the hem of your garment. Now I know that I'll be made whole again." She cried, "Oh Lord, oh Lord, oh Lord." She said, "If I could just touch the hem of his garment, now I know that I'll be made whole again."
Seeking meaning, wanting to do something that matters or have an impact on the world. It may be as simple as just reaching out to be a loving friend to others. The place God calls us all is the place where our deep gladness and the world's hunger meets. Please stay seated and listen to David's closing song,
which coincidentally is called The Hunger. What is this hunger that drives me like rain, that beats against the walls of some dark canyon? What silence calls me through every kind of pain, the unseen and constant companion? What is at the heart of this aching desire? If I find it, will I I can't see it, but I want it. I can't touch it, but I need it. I can't name it, but I can't live without it. I watch the eyes of strangers and everyone I know, hoping for a sign or a reason. Some glances linger with stories untold and reveal the dimmest spark of recognition. What is at the heart of this aching desire? If I find it, will I even know it? I can't see it, but I want it. I can't touch it, but I need it. I can't name it, but I can't live without it. Tattered army of despair keeps on stumbling, while the hunger deep within keeps on rumbling. Moments of stillness, of sudden clarity, still rise through the noise and confusion. Voices in the desert and whispering in the trees. If I turn my head, I can almost hear them. When I listen, I can almost start to hear them. What is at the heart of this aching desire? If I find it, will I even know it? I can't see it, but I want it. I can't touch it, but I need it. I can't name it, but I can't live without it.
Thank you, David. Friends, go in peace, live in the light of God's love. And the people said, Amen.